This is my space right here. I love talking about this issue. And I wish I had a whiteboard with me. But the truth of the matter is, you're absolutely right. The United States, and let's just talk about recent history. We can talk about how we ended up getting here. I mean, when Reagan was president, people were worried about $1 trillion in debt. Today, $1 trillion is part of a spending package, right? But nevertheless, here we are with $31 trillion and rising rapidly in debt. We printed so much cash in order to finance the government spending in the last few years that we actually increased the money supply by almost double in 3 years. The Federal Reserve had to step in as the buyer of last resort. The buyer of last resort, because there was no other buyer. Even the nation of China couldn't use its foreign currency reserves to purchase enough U.S. treasuries to satisfy the government's spending appetite these last 3 years. Now some will say, oh, well, it was an emergency. Well, it was an emergency because the government created the emergency in the first place. Let's be clear about that. But nevertheless, here we've got this challenge now where we're structurally trapped. And I think this was Ron Paul's point many years ago. We're structurally trapped because we no longer have the ability to raise interest rates in any meaningful way, because when we do, the government has to refinance its debt periodically, and it enters into the public markets to do so. And as it refinances its debt, it has to refinance that debt at higher and higher interest rates, which means a larger percentage of our tax revenue goes to finance interest payments. So all that money that's going out in tax revenue is getting eaten up by interest. What's interesting right now is we're not anywhere near a balanced budget, okay? But did you know that tax revenue today, in the fiscal year that ended September 30th of this year, we had the second highest tax receipts in the nation's history? Not on a nominal basis, not on a hard dollar basis, on a percentage of GDP basis. The only time that it's been higher is at the peak during World War II. This is a huge problem, and we see a case study happening right now in Japan. So Japan, they used to be 110 yen to the dollar just 18 months ago. Right now, they're about 140 yen to the dollar and rising. Why? Because they have allowed their debt to GDP ratio to hit 230, 240%. And as an industrialized nation, there's no way that you cannot maintain that. It's gotten so bad that Japan has no idea how they're going to rein that back in. And so, if we don't get this under control, and it may, honestly, it may be too late to get it under control. We're going to be real honest about it, maybe too late.
And then what?
Well, there's two things that happen when that happens. You have two choices to make, and you can see the Fed and the Treasury are trying to figure out how to make this choice. You can institute government austerity, which reduces government spending dramatically, but you also have to lower the interest rate. And when you lower the interest rate, the dollar relative to other currencies drops, which juices inflation. The only way to fix this problem over the long haul is to become a producing nation again. Because right now, the primary export of the United States is the United States dollar. And we lose that reserve currency status, we're going to have all kinds of problems in this nation because we do not produce enough of what we consume.